Welcome. Good evening, everyone who is present and live, ready to get to work, ready to do some research together on how we can find the best tools. Specifically, we're going to be working on discovering home equity lines of credits in the state of Tennessee. And all throughout this week, we're going to be going state by state. For an hour, I'm going to go live for the rest of this week. And we're going to cover as many states as we can. Specifically, I'm focusing on states that majority of you already live in, that I have clients in, people that have banks that they work with in these specific states. And I'm going to take you through my process. I've done this numerous times in the past where I break down how to qualify banks, how to research banks, how to ask the right questions, and ultimately how to do all of the pregame work so that you don't get denied when you apply for that home equity line of credit and you don't end up with the wrong tool. So many people are discovering velocity banking for the very first time in the last few years. There is a huge wave of new customers, new people discovering this strategy on using properly designed lines of credits with the banks, whether that be a combination of personal lines of credits, credit cards, home equity line of credits in the first and second position on your primary or a rental property. Many of you are doing this very well, but there is a much larger audience of beginners, newcomers that are simply doing this strategy incorrectly. And in order for this strategy to work, the main ingredient, the whole strategy relies on one particular item, and it's the tool that you're using. So if you have the wrong tool altogether, the whole strategy is pointless. It's not going to produce the results that you think you can get. And then you're going to have buyer's remorse, and then you're going to be mad at the content creator that was promoting the strategy because you did not take the initiative, you didn't take the initial steps. And this is something that I will continue to preach over and over and over again. You got to do the pregame work. So there's tons of videos I already have on my YouTube channel going over the pregame work, and I'm just reiterating it and over and over again as much as I can for you to really get this, because it is sad to see people get this wrong on a very basic level, meaning you picked up the wrong tool. What's the wrong tool, Denzel? Well, an easy indicator, and I think this applies to many different industries. If we look at a business, specifically we're looking at banks, okay? We're looking at banks. And you're trying to find a specific product at a bank. And let's just say every bank you're looking at has the same amount of money in their bank account. And each of these different banks are going to allocate how they spend their money. And some of the key areas when you're running a business, in terms of where you're going to spend money, is marketing. Whoever spends the most amount of money that they have in their bank account in marketing, most of the time, the quality of the product does not match the level of money spent in marketing. Why? Well, it's because if you have $1, let's take this to the whiteboard real quick. Let me give you a little analysis. Let's say you're a business owner. You have a business. Okay? You're the business owner, you got a business, and you have $1 in your bank account, and you need to spend this dollar in a certain way for you to acquire a customer. Some of the key areas where you would spend this dollar is in your product, the product itself. What is your product that you're offering? So you're going to allocate money to that. And you have marketing. And another key area is service. I would say these are the three main areas, and there's also other ways that we can disperse this dollar. But if you spend 100% of your dollar on marketing, chances are your customer service and your product is not going to match the amount of money you spent on marketing. Okay? So when we're evaluating banks, to find the right HELOC, that's the product. HELOC is the product. What many of you do is you'll Google, search, and many of you click on the first bank that you see. So many of you type in HELOC in Tennessee. So I'm going to demonstrate what many of you do and why it's messing you up bad. And it's so simple. You're just not taking the time. That's all it is. You're not taking the time. So when you don't take the time, you then suffer the consequence. Then you find me, or you find someone else online, and then we fix you up. Okay? That is the vast majority of people that come across this strategy. Think they can do it on their own, so they go do it on their own. They mess up, then they finally hire coaching, then they finally spend the money, they invest in themselves, they personally develop, and then we have fun together. There's a minority of you watching, you know who you are. You've discovered the concept, you said, oh wow, this is interesting. With a dose of skepticism, you took it further, you did research, you looked at different content creators that were talking about this strategy. You look at the pros, the cons, you looked at the good, the bad, the ugly, everything in between. Then you took it a step further and you say, you know what, let me jump on a call with this Denzel guy. Let me jump on a call with the Kwok brothers. Let me jump on a call with Christy Van. And so you jumped on the call with them, and then we gave you some guidance. We did some research with you. Then you went, you got the right product, and you are a total fan of the strategy. And you're having a blast because you did everything right. You did all the pregame work, and God bless you. I wish there are more people like you. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So here's what many of you are doing. I just simply want you to avoid this. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Here's what you do. Let's say you live in the state of Tennessee. Comment what state you live in, and if you are searching, you're looking for the right tool for you to implement this strategy to accelerate your debt. Please comment that. HELOC in Tennessee. This is what you guys do. You type how to find HELOC in Tennessee, and you click on the first one that's sponsored, the one that's spending the most amount of money. So here is an institution called Better. Home equity line of credit. You heard Denzel say home equity line of credit, so you remembered that. Okay, cool. You're reading, it says fast, 100% digital HELOC process. Quickly turn your home equity into cash by tapping into your property's value. We offer anywhere from $50K to $500,000, available for primary, second, and investment homes. HELOC approval in minutes. they'll do 90% LTV. Many of you probably aren't even looking at the whole site. You just went to apply right away. We can't, I don't want to put in my information. I'm trying to see if there's anything else we can read here. So other than Texas, this Better Mortgage HELOC product is available in all states other than Texas. Please note that you are required to draw at least $50,000 or 75% of your credit limit, whichever is greater, at the time of funding. For example, if your credit limit is $200,000, you must draw $150,000 or more at funding. If you would like to draw less at funding, you may lower your credit limit. Guys, 100% full stop. Why on earth am I being required to pull this amount of money out? That's a full stop. This is not a good product for our community, the velocity community, the debt acceleration community, the people that are going to be using this particular strategy. This is not a good product for you, but many of you are getting these products. So you're using a bank like Better, and they're not even a bank, it's a broker. Then you're hooking up with Figure, America's #1 non-bank. This is not a bank. Figure is not a bank. Although they spend the most amount of money in marketing, their product is not the right product. It's not efficient. It really isn't. I've done so many videos on this because you guys don't like to read this right here at the bottom. This is what's messing you guys up when you don't read this stuff. It's messing you up bad. Real bad. These interest rates, they're not that attractive. There's additional fees. There's closing costs. It's not a bank. So guess what? You're not able to move money in and out instantaneously. So you're gonna be paying extra money in costs. Okay? This is no bueno. No bueno. So let me show you what my clients do. People who watch my videos in depth, people who take the time. We're going to take that time now together. We're going to take a look at the left-hand side of the board here. These are your main action items. You're going to want to take a screenshot of this. You're going to want to write this down yourself in your own notes so that you remember this stuff. These are the main action items, the main points that you want to find out about the bank before you apply. You need to know where you stand financially with your credit score and your DTI. Please comment if you do not know how to calculate DTI, debt to income. It is okay. This is a safe place. If you do not understand DTI, what it is, how it works, let me know. We can run a scenario together on that to help you. Preferably, we want 30% or less DTI, max no more than 45%. I think the sweet spot is between like 30 and 40% with the DTI. Credit score, I like to see you at a 720 or higher. What that simply means is you're going to be a tier 1 borrower. Tier 1. You're going to get the best interest rates from that bank. If your credit score is above 720 or higher, you're going to increase your chances of getting a much better interest rate on that specific product. So credit score, DTI, LTV options. What are those options? Majority of banks operate between 70 and 90%. Some go as high as 95 to 100%. Closing costs. Some HELOCs have fees. Some do not. Okay? Preferably, I don't want to pay closing costs. Preferably. If there are closing costs, that range you'll typically see in the 500 to 1,000 or more range. Intro rate. Usually, most banks are between 6 and 12 months with an intro rate, or in some rare cases, this is more rare, you will be able to lock in anywhere from a 3 to 5 year fixed rate. Then it goes variable. Interest rate calculation. How is my interest accruing in that home equity line of credit? Most HELOCs are, and this is actually the same. So interest rate calculation determines payment calculation. So most HELOCs are between principal and interest or interest only. Where some people make the mistake by not double checking this right here, and they assume. When you assume, mistakes are made. When you don't do this right here, you don't check to see if your payment is principal and interest or if it's interest only. When you don't know, sometimes people get thrown into a HE loan, a home equity loan, that is going to be most likely principal and interest, but it's not going to be revolving. So not revolving. Very, very important. So when you're asking the bank about interest rate calculation, payment calculation, if this word doesn't get mentioned, you bring it up. You say, I just want to make sure that this home equity line of credit is revolving, open-ended. I have accessibility to the equity. It's not trapped in a disbursement and then a fixed repayment. That's not what we're doing. We're trying to have full access and liquidity. It's extremely important. Draw period also feeds into this. If there's a draw period, that is another indication, green flag, you have the right product, that it is in fact a home equity line of credit, because it has a draw period, which is usually, in many cases, about 10 years. Some go as high as 20 years or as low as 5 years. Every single one of these things are critical, very, very important. But this right here is a major pregame action item you need to take. Build a relationship with the bank. So after you do your research, which we're going to do together right now, we're going to research banks together. You want to eventually narrow your options to 1 or 2 banks. You're going to open up a checking account at that bank, a checking and a savings. That is what's called building a relationship. You can go steps further by walking into the branch, sitting down with Steve, with Susan at the bank, who is in charge of the HELOC department. Making a relationship with a real person at a specific branch to establish that relationship so that when you're ready to apply, they know exactly who you are and there is a human attached to your application. It doesn't just go through an algorithmic process. It will go through that process, but you're also going to have a banker on your side that may say a few words on your application, which is extremely important. Last thing is mobile banking. This is extremely valuable for the velocity strategy, where as long as I have mobile banking access to my home equity line of credit, I'm going to be able to transfer money in and out of the line. Extremely important. So we're going to do our research. Very, very important. We're going to be focusing on HELOCs, home equity line of credit. We're going to handle that first in the state of Tennessee. We're going to look at second position HELOCs. If you want me to look at a personal line of credit in the state of Tennessee, put that in the comments. Happy to do that. Okay? Happy to do that for you. And then I asked the question earlier if everybody understands DTI, and I think I saw something balance divided by credit limit. No, that's not DTI. Correct, that's credit utilization. Yeah. So we'll do a quick search together so that we all fully understand the debt to income ratio calculation. Debt to income ratio. Personal finance metric compares your monthly debt payments to your gross monthly income. So you're going to take your annual gross income that you made last year, let's say, or you can pull from current income today. But most likely the banks look at last year's income. And you're going to take your total debt payments, not what you're paying in debts, only look at the minimum required payments on all your debts. Minimum required payments on all your debts. Add all that up. So to calculate, get your minimum payments on all of your debts. Get your gross annual income. And you're going to divide your monthly debt payments by your gross monthly income. DTI is generally considered better with 36% or less. So as I mentioned earlier, I overestimated. 30% or less, you're in a great position for a home equity line of credit. If you're above 45%, highly unlikely that you would get approved for a home equity line of credit. If you do, it's not going to be the best product. So you want to be below 40, around that 36%. The lower the better, obviously. When you're not in the best position financially, that's when I talk about the pregame work, the graduation process. So when you look at the graduation process of velocity banking, typically it starts with debt snowball or debt avalanche. Debt snowball or debt avalanche does not require good or bad credit. It just is what it is. So you begin the strategy that way to start building your credit up. From there, we may start using credit cards or a personal line of credit, unless I'm working with a homeowner that has 20% or more equity in their property, then we're looking at HELOCs. So typically HELOCs is at the tail end of many velocity banking strategies that I've worked with, first or second. In many cases, we're not just jumping there unless the person has done all of this work. They've done the pregame work. They already have a credit card. They maybe already been using a personal line of credit, and they're going to graduate into the home equity line of credit. So an example would be, back to the DTI, say you had $100,000 in income, and say you had let's do 2,500 in debt payments. Calculation is you divide the monthly debt payments into your gross monthly income. So that's our annual. So take 100,000, divide that by 12. So you can do it like that, or you do the 2,500 times 12. And you can get the annual from it. So you do 100,000, 30,000 divided by 100,000. So you do it like that, and you're going to get 30%, right? That's the idea behind DTI. So again, make sure when you're calculating your DTI that you are somewhere in that 30% ish range. If you find yourself 50 or higher, 45 or higher, a lot of the banks are not going to want to do business with you. Okay? So now let me show you what I type exactly in my Google search when I'm searching for banks, when I'm working with my clients. This is what I do. I just type in credit unions that offer home equity line of credit in whatever state that I'm in. I immediately ignore the sponsored banks because I know I can find a better bank. All I do is scroll a little bit, and these are the banks I want to look at. So I already kind of pulled up a bunch of them, so I'm going to go one by one. Here's a bank in the state of Tennessee called Forterra Credit Union. Go to personal, home equity line of credit. That's all about you. Flexible loan that locks rates right where you need them. Okay, interesting. Here we go. So we're going to go through our checklist of action items, making sure that each bank checks off on what we need, and then that goes on our list. So we have Forterra, and I'm going to write on my board. I want you to take your notes as well. So we got Fortra Credit Union. Let's look. Draw period, 10 years. Whatever information we can't find on the website, you're going to have to call and get the information. Every HELOC is created differently. There's no bank that has the same HELOC as another bank. They're all different. So here's a little uniqueness of this bank. Says that you can make withdrawals up to your approved limit whenever you like. Certain fees may apply, and our HELOC even lets you check off multiple items on those bucket. You'll have the ability to use up to 3 rate locks at one time. Each lock will have its own rate that is locked in for up to 10-year terms. Once you've paid off one of the locks, you can add another in its place. Variable rates starting at 7.75%. Back to our interest rate calculation over here. One thing I left out is they're going to explain how they come up with their interest rate. So in a combination of whether it's principal and interest or interest only, is it revolving, is it not? The other aspect they're going to tell you is our rate is based off of prime minus, or prime plus margin. With this bank, I immediately know that this is a prime plus bank. And all we have to do is know at any given time, we Google search, what is the prime interest rate? So in 2025, as of September, prime is currently at 7.75%. And literally tomorrow, we're going to find out if interest rates are going to go down. If interest rates go down, then prime will be reset. Immediately, every single bank in America will adjust their HELOC products to whatever the prime is. So I already know, looking at this website, let's come back, 7.75% is 0.25 above prime. So it says variable APR starting at 7.75 or 8.25. Not bad though. Now, with different banks, with the same bank, they may have different types of HELOCs. They may have a interest only HELOC. They may have a principal and interest HELOC. So what is the difference? Well, we see here that the interest only HELOC, the line amount is $25,000 being the minimum, with a starting APR at 8.5%. So if I'm okay with having a principal and interest payment HELOC, I'm going to get a lower rate, 7.5%. There's also this lock period for 36 months. And I guess the minimum amount that you can lock is $10,000 from what I'm seeing here. It also could just be an example. Now, what else do we need to find out? We need to find out if there's any closing costs. Fee applications. So according to Forterra, no closing costs. So we got no closing costs. We have, look at this. You can access your line of credit by using your debit card at an ATM or by writing a check. Most likely, this bank, Forterra Credit Union, most likely has mobile banking. Let's see. Boom. Mobile banking. Look how easy this is. So, mobile banking, check. No closing costs, drop period 10 years. Interest rate calculation 7.75 to 8.5%. Not bad. But do they have an intro rate period. What's that? Do they reveal if there's any intro rate period at all? Let's see. Then they also have a bunch of Q&As, which is nice. Let's see. Interest only payment. So we got 80% LTV. So interest only payment loan to value is less than 80%. Then the rate is even higher. Interest only payment where the loan to value is greater than 80%. It's between 9.5% and 10%. HELOCs adjust monthly on the first day of the month. There's no limit on the amount by which the annual percentage rate can change during any 1 year period. The maximum is 18%. The minimum is 3.25. So what that simply means is the rate will never be less than 3.25, never going to be more than 18%. We get a discount if you set up auto pay, which tells me something. Again, they have mobile banking. Whenever you see this, they have mobile banking. They have a checking account. This is a real bank. This is not a online bank. Real bank with a real location, very important. So we pretty much have almost all of the information that we need to add this bank onto our list. Forterra Credit Union, draw period 10 years, no closing costs, mobile banking options. They give you a debit card. That means more than likely you're able to potentially run bills right through that card, which is good. And it's a real bank. So whenever you set up a HELOC, you're going to want to have a checking account at that bank. That's for optimal performance and results for the strategy. For you to maximize your experience with this strategy, you're going to want to have your income going to Forterra Bank Credit Union if you were to choose them in the state of Tennessee. Only Tennessee residents can bank with Forterra Credit Union. What does that mean? That creates exclusivity to that bank for just people who live in Tennessee. That makes it where the bank is providing more of a service value to the residents of Tennessee. Forterra spends far less money on marketing. They put more money toward customer service and the product. You as the customer need to do your job to do the research. You have to do the market research yourself because they're not coming to you. We got to go to them. Unlike Figure or Avon or the other sponsored banks, they're coming to us to get us in. We in this community, we are market researchers. Type that in the comments. I am a market researcher. Market researchers. That's what we do. We study, we learn, we educate so that we get the very best deals. When we get the very best deals, guess what? Velocity banking makes more financial sense in many case studies. That's why all my case studies, for the most part, look really good often because I'm using the right tool. Super important. So Forterra makes the list. Now we're going to inject competition. So that's in a place called Clarksville. Let's go to the next bank. This is called Leaders Credit Union. Let's look up their HELOC. Time to put your HELOC to work. Boom. So Leaders, I'm going to write that, credit union is already promoting a 5.99 interest rate. Pretty attractive. Let's see what we have to do to get that rate, because it says as low as 5.99. So we have no prepayment or early termination penalties. Link to your Leaders checking account and spend funds with a free Leaders debit card. This is good. This is very velocity friendly. They're speaking our language in plain sight. They're speaking our language in plain sight. So we already know, based on that statement, mobile banking friendly. Based on that statement alone. Intuitive portal, track your HELOC and make payments. That's another one. We got a 7-year draw, so it's a little less than Forterra. 7-year draw. Let's see what else, what other kind of information we can find. APR is subject to change without rates as low as 5.99. Ooh, wow. Now that is attractive. 36 months promotional rate at a time like this in 2025, 5.99 is beautiful. So after the first 36 months, the rate will return to a variable rate, as is our standard Smart Line HELOC. APR, based on Wall Street Journal Prime, 7.75. That's weird because Prime is actually 7.5. So I don't know what, that's out of date. So they have to update their website. Okay. So okay. So it's 7.75 plus they have a margin of 0.25% to as high as 6%. And again, based on credit scores and or combined loan to value ratio, can range from no less than 7% or more than 18%. Closing costs based on credit line amount. Home equity line payments are based on previous month. Okay. Okay. Yep. Very helpful. Very attractive. We're going to put that in here. 36 months. Man, if you live in Tennessee, wow. 5.99 right now. You could consolidate over the next 3 years car loans that you're sitting on at 7, 8, 9%, credit cards at 20, 30%, personal loans at 10, 12, 14, 15%, student loans 6, 7, 8, 9%, IRS debt 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% rates. My goodness, at 5.99, a lot of you are sitting on a lot of equity in your home and it's sitting dead. It's not doing anything for you. And now you can put that to work to accelerate a lot of your consumer debts. Pay far less in interest. You start off at 5.99 interest rate, and that's fixed for 3 years. And in those 3 years, you can pay off a massive amount of debt, because the reality is when you're doing the strategy, the net amount of interest you pay in a year is going to be less than 5.99%. We can cut that down to a net cost of about 3%. Imagine borrowing per year at a net 2-3%. So literally in 2025, sitting on 5.99 is a gold mine. I mean, that's what it is. So then you ask yourself, well, which bank do I go with, Forterra or Leaders? Call them, right? If you talk to Leaders, right, you call them and then you get a hold of Jason and Jason was super nice. That might be the one thing that just makes you say, you know what, I'm just going to go with them. Or you call Leaders one day and you get a hold of Tom and Tom was rude as hell, not helpful at all. It might make you feel like, you know what, it's not worth the headache. I'm going to come over here to Forterra, right? But here's the problem. Do we stop after 2 banks? No. Let's keep going. Here's the next one, Southeast Financial Credit Union. Home equity loans, lines of credits. Got 7.5%. So we got Southeast Credit Union, SECU for short. We got 7.5%. They have mobile banking. Okay. What else can we find? I don't know if the draw period is referring. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So 5-year draw. I don't love a 5-year draw, so it's a bit short. But you can always renew it. Trying to see if they have closing costs. When you're researching, what you're looking through all this, not all this obviously, but you're looking for something that'll say rates or any other additional information. You want to make sure you're reading these little paragraphs here at the bottom. This bank is not giving us a lot of info, unlike the other banks. So I don't know if Southeast Financial Credit Union would be worth much of my time, all things considered, right? Because you're competing right now. You're letting these banks compete for your business. The next bank we're looking at, TFFCU. A lot of these credit unions got weird names. Weird names. But you don't care about that, okay? So we're here to get the right product. So let me write TVFCU Bank. Let's see what they got. We're going to find out more about the home equity line of credit. No origination fees, so it may not have any closing costs. Mobile banking, they got that. That's good. What else can we find here? Trying to see rates, but then okay. Are you gonna share? Find out more. So they're putting me in the loop. All right, so this bank, I gotta dig. So this would be, we have to call them. I might be able to find it here. So sometimes there's a tab on websites called rates, or it'll say fee schedule. And we're not seeing anything. So that bank may not make my list. U.S. Community Credit Union. Let's check this out. Home equity. Let's see. Equity loan. Notice how some banks give a lot of information. Other banks don't give too much. They put you in a loop. That tells me something. That tells me, hey, maybe this bank don't, when I call them, they're probably going to push me to get a loan, a second mortgage. Sometimes it's not the case. You just need a call. Clearly, this bank wants me to call because they're not sharing much at all. UT Federal Credit Union, Tennessee. See what we got. Same thing. They're not giving much. Fast and easy, convenient, with a credit card tied to your line of credit, so we know mobile banking friendly with this bank. That's cool, but we don't know what their rates are, fortunately. First South Financial is another bank. Let's see what we got. Personal. Do they even offer a HELOC? Some don't. Let's go to loans. Oh, here we go. Home equity line of credit. Limits as high as 500K. This is First South. We got 500K max line. No points or origination costs. So that sounds like no closing costs, but you got to be careful. You got to make sure. See that? It's just based off prime. So with this bank, it would be 7.5%. So we know what the rate is. 12-year draw. Not bad. That's attractive. 12-year draw. We have an intro period. Plus a margin of 2%. So how did they go from prime to then say prime plus a margin of 2%? So you got to be careful with these banks. You got to be careful. It's like, what specific product is this called? That's the 80% LTV product. So what might happen is if your loan to value is more than 80%, they might throw you in the 2% margin. It could be as simple as that when you're working with banks, to ask that question, and that saves you 2 points. Super important. We have some closing costs, more than likely, $350 or more. And there's something about a 6-month intro period, so I'll just throw that in there. Don't know what it is, but for 6 months there is an intro rate. Let's see if I can find any other information. See what happens if I click on loans. Yeah, okay, so that's all they're sharing. Okay. So we looked at, we looked at UT, we looked at US, we looked at Southeast, we looked at Leaders. Forterra. Leaders is the most attractive bank so far. So what you want to do is when you find a bank that's attractive, we want to see if there's any bank that might be better than that. So we haven't looked at Redstone yet. We haven't looked at Liberty. Let's see what they got. Home loan. This bank doesn't even look like they offer a home equity line of credit, so I'm not going to waste my time. Low mortgage. Do they have a HELOC? Doesn't look like it. Look one more time. Yeah, not seeing it. Okay. So how long was that? 30 minutes, 45 minutes that we just spent together in terms of the actual research time. I gave you the main action items. Then we did research together, and we found that if you live in the state of Tennessee and you're not doing velocity banking yet and you're looking for a line of credit, Leaders Credit Union so far, Forterra Credit Union, and First South seem to be the most attractive banks right now. Leaders coming in front with that 5.99 for 36 months. For the next 3 years, you're at 5.99. Now, here's what's cool about that 5.99 rate. Prime is at 7.5%. So even if interest rates go down tomorrow and again in December, it's not going to go down below 5.99. And more than likely won't go below 5.99 in 26 or even 27. I doubt it. I really doubt rates are going to drop 2.5 points from 7.5, down to below 5.99. And even if it did, no big deal. You already benefited. You already received your benefit. Now time has caught up to your rate. So that's the bet that we play. But you're not going to be upset if you locked in a 5.99 rate today in 2025 when rates are 1.5 or more above that. You're not going to be upset. You really aren't. Here is the parameters again. Reminder. Look at that. Forterra, Leaders, Southeast Credit Union. Okay, super important that we look at these things. Let me take a look at some of your questions. We got the Redstone credit card is a beast. 5% and 3% categories combined with no cash advance and balance transfer fee. That's the reason why I wanted to join Redstone. Okay, cool. So here's where you improve the strategy even further. Let's say you went with Leaders Credit Union with your main debt tool. So your main debt tool is always going to be most likely a personal line of credit or a home equity line of credit when you're doing velocity. Then You add on more velocity by using a credit card that works in combination with your HELOC. So let's say Jesus got Leaders Credit Union 5.99 with a second lien HELOC for $250K, no closing costs, 36 months, lock that in. Plus he goes to Redstone Credit Union, opens up a relationship with that bank, and gets a credit card that has no balance transfer fees, no cash advance, and points where he's earning 3 to 5%. That's awesome. Okay, that's not bad at all. I'm not upset about that. Anybody have any questions? Because my hour is up. I gotta be off the live stream before wife gets home. She's not home yet. She's about 10 minutes away from the house. So you got me for a few more minutes. Denzel, is debt primarily mortgage, credit card, and car loans, but not household? Correct. So in terms of the DTI calculation, your utilities is not used as debt. If you have a car lease, if you have student loans, anything that is being reported to the credit bureaus is debt. Correct. Depends on the HELOC handler, but you get huge credit limit combined with a lower interest rate because you're guaranteeing the HELOC with your home. That is correct. So you will always most likely see personal lines of credits at a higher interest rate than home equity lines of credits, which is why I tell you, like, the PLOC is cool for people who don't own a home, right? If you don't own a home, you can't get a HELOC. So if you're not a homeowner, the PLOC is your next best option. Because compared to credit cards, which are at 20+%, we can get you into a PLOC around 10%, sometimes less than 10%. In today's marketplace right now, I've had clients where they had PLOCs as low as 7.5%. The cool thing about PLOCs is once you get it, usually the rate stays the same. Even though it's variable, I have seen over the years that the banks, they keep the rate the same. Many banks I've seen this with PLOCs is if you started at 10% 3 years ago, it's still at 10% today, even though rates went up and went down. Sometimes that's very advantageous for velocity banking. Does it make sense to get a bigger PLOC if you can qualify instead of a HELOC, a lien with the HELOC, instead of a HELOC? Not necessarily. If I'm a homeowner, I'm always more than likely going to get a better interest rate with the HELOC. Once I'm working with homeowners, I look at the PLOC as a secondary product. I really don't want to be messing around with it. Again, if I can have a HELOC at a much lower interest rate. If for some wild reason you find me a PLOC that is a lower interest rate than your HELOC, then yes, then I'll be like, sure. The cool part with personal lines of credits in regards to requesting credit line increases is you don't have to reapply, in a sense, like a HELOC where you got to go through closing costs all over again. It's not like that. With a PLOC, you just request a credit line increase. They'll do a soft pull maybe, and they'll approve you right then and there. Let's see. Navy Fed HELOC 8.0 interest only. Is this good? Well, I've had plenty of people use Navy Fed. Some of the advantages that Navy Fed has, it's nationwide. You're being quoted 8.0%, but if we go to Navy Fed's website, the rate is actually lesser than that. Home equity line of credit. Home equity line of credit. You see that? 7.75. It's got the 20-year draw. Borrow up to 95% of your home equity Max credit line, 500,000, no closing costs. It's got very convenient mobile banking, no annual fees, interest only. So it's the right product in regards to Navy Fed. Like, is it good? Like, yeah, it's a good product, but should you get it? So whatever state that you're in, Mr. Worldwide, in the comments, have you allowed yourself to be a market researcher and compete against Navy Fed? Can you find me a bank? Like, what state are you in? Let's find out what state you're in. Then find me a bank that can compete against Navy Fed in your state. That's important. If you can do that and beat 7.75, 20-year draw, the credit limit amount, the loan to value, no annual fee, interest only, no closing costs, mobile banking friendly, easy access. Navy Fed also has very competitive credit cards as well. Very competitive. So you want to look at the whole picture there and make your decision from there. If we were lining up Leaders Credit Union, if I had a Tennessee resident in here and you're in Georgia, okay? So if I'm gonna compare Leaders Credit Union, 5.99, 36 months, 7-year draw, mobile banking friendly, compared to Navy Fed 7.75, 20-year draw, no closing costs, no annual fees, interest only. Today, I'm leaning more toward Leaders Credit Union. That's me personally. Let's go to Georgia. Got plenty of clients out there in Georgia. Let's go to Georgia. Boom. Let's try to simply beat that 7.75 rate. Credit unions in Georgia that offer a home equity line of credit. Remember, skip, figure, skip, citizens, skip, bomb, skip all that. Come down, come over here. Georgia Credit Union. Let me close all these different banks. Boom, boom, boom. Combo home equity line of credit. 90%, 500K max. Let's see. 10-year draw. Already beat you. Look at that, Mr. Worldwide. I already beat you with Navy Fed. So if I live in Georgia, I'm looking at Navy Fed, which is offering me 8% according to Worldwide in the comment section. I took 2 seconds, did research. That 0.75% difference, no, that 1% difference, if Mr. Worldwide goes with Navy Fed over this bank right here, over the course of his velocity banking journey, I might have just saved him multiple thousands of dollars in interest costs just from that right there. Say that, man. So much cashola. But let's keep going. What other information can we find on this website? Individual credit worthiness, okay. Maximum rate is 15%. They have those lock rates things. I often don't mess with that. Okay, but here's the thing. Look at that. Those closing costs are kind of high with this bank. Kind of high. I don't love that. All right, so you don't want to get too excited. You don't want to get too excited. But that's 7%. LGE, 7.5. Let's see the rates. $7.5%. So it's 0.5 difference. Oh my God. Don't like that. $0 to $4,000. So from a fee standpoint, Navy Fed is outperforming right now. From a rate standpoint, I seem to be winning. 7.5, 7%. But I'm not sold. I'm not sold. What else we got? There's other banks here that we could use. I don't have a whole lot of time, Mr. Worldwide. Wife might be on the way home. I'm tracking her location, so bear with me. See rates. Okay, 7.25. 500,000 max, 95% LTV. Is their closing costs? You don't want to look that up. You have to call them. They're not showing if they have closing costs or not. But 7.25 is attractive. Let's see. 10-year draw, fixed rate, 85%. There's so many that we can look at. So I can, this is definitely not a bank I want to look at. They have spent no money on their website. Credit unions in Georgia offer a home equity line of credit with a intro rate and no closing costs. What is this? CGR Credit Union 4.99. Let's look that up. CGR Credit Union. Loans, home equity, 4.99, brother. No closing costs. Minimum loan amount 15,000. How big do they go? So you can only get 100,000 with them. Okay, so that's where Navy Fed may be more advantageous, where you're like, you know what, Denzel, I'm willing to pay that extra point to have no closing costs, but my credit line can be as high as 500,000. And that is your decision there. The draw period is longer. This one's only a 5-year and a 5-year draw, versus Navy Fed had a 20-year draw on it. So you're constantly competing. We're trying to find not just the best interest rate, but the overall best product. How is that product fully built? Okay. So tomorrow we're going to look at another state, and we're in another state. So today we did Tennessee and Georgia. Not so much on Georgia, but we went a deep dive on Tennessee, and we found Leaders Credit Union is really competing right now for our business. Forterra was competing for business, and First South. The rest of the banks, either they have good tools and we just don't know. We have to call to find out because they weren't displaying it on their website. Chances are, if they don't display it on their website, they probably don't have it. That's usually my rule of thumb, but it's still worth calling, finding out, getting all those details. With that being said, let's see. And so we're able to bring bring your idea to life of getting a secure credit card with a life insurance policy? Not yet. Not yet. So I made a video talking about like uh, designing a perfect line of credit. So I'm working on that, and it's just going to be a matter of banks buying into the message of this community, that the types of products that we want. That's going to help us not only get out of debt, but help us be better borrowers, invest, create cash flow, et cetera, et cetera. With that being said, I gotta go. Love you all. Appreciate your time this evening. I will see you tomorrow evening. Until then, God bless and talk soon. Bye now.